Tonight, the investigation into the Nolan Wells death bombshell. Joining us tonight, Nolan's friends' lawyers fight back. Who's telling the truth?
First, the body surfaces on Horn Island, washed up, and within days, multiple people claim to have seen him alive on that same island after his friends reportedly left. Second, the medical examiner removes his throat and lungs for testing, but nobody can explain why the throat specifically warranted removal. Third, a Coast Guard call gets posted online, repo-hanced, allegedly doctored by multiple people, until nobody can verify what was actually said. Fourth, the defense claims the 600 p.m. sighting proves their clients left at 40:30, which would make them physically impossible as perpetrators. Fifth, 1 month passes, and Nolan's phone, the one object that could place him, track him, show his final hours, remains in private hands, never delivered to investigators. This is the story of how a timeline, when it becomes the centerpiece of a case, can either exonerate or implicate, depending on who corroborates it. Today, we separate what is documented from what is assumed, from what remains desperately unclear. The official narrative, as it emerged in the first 48 hours, sounded straightforward. On July 4th, Nolan Wells boarded the Triton, a boat captained by friends, bound for Horn Island in Mississippi. He was with a group. The island is a 10-mile-long barrier island, only a few hundred yards wide in most places. It's populated on summer weekends. Boats cluster offshore. People drink. People swim. The Triton, according to GPS data and defense accounts, departed around 40:30 p.m. Nolan Wells was not on it when it left. That's the claim. Not that he was never on the boat. Not that he wasn't with friends all day. Just that when the boat pulled away from the island around 40:30 in the afternoon, he remained behind. If true, this single fact becomes everything, because if Nolan was still on the island at 4:30 and the friends were gone by 40:31, then the friends cannot have done anything to him while on the water during that critical window. The attorneys representing 3 of the young men, Warren, Morgan, and Jax, have staked their entire defense on this. They've given investigators access to phone records, to location data, to everything except a polygraph, which, they correctly note, would be inadmissible in court anyway. Their argument is simple: test the evidence, not the testimony. The GPS doesn't lie. The cell tower pings don't lie. The video footage from boats that day doesn't lie. But here's where the narrative starts to splinter. Officer Tatum, a YouTube personality with a following in true crime communities, initially reported to Nancy Grace that the friends had taken polygraphs, passed them, and done so without lawyers present. That detail, without lawyers, matters because it suggests cooperation, not obstruction. But when pressed, Tatum clarified they hadn't taken traditional polygraphs. They'd undergone voice stress analysis, a different methodology entirely. The attorneys then clarified further their clients had not taken any version of a polygraph test. Some of the other people in the group had. The girl Nolan spent time with took a stress analysis test, but the core defendants did not.
Nancy, my clients have not taken a polygraph test, and I can tell you why. Because any lawyer worth their salt is going to tell their clients not to take a polygraph test under any circumstances. 2 of my clients went in and made statements with me. We're not going to I'm not going to do a polygraph test because, one, as you know, they're not admissible in court. And so it wasn't going to be admissible anyway. You should never, ever, if you're a lawyer, allow your clients to take a polygraph test. Now, we allowed investigators from the jump to have access to their phones, their Life 360, everything. We have cooperated implicitly every step of the way. But no, they didn't take polygraphs tests. But what I'll tell you is one of the other boys, who I won't mention their name, but I'm sure that you've heard, took one. The girl that Nolan was with took a stress analysis voice test, and so did the other boy. So that's the test they took. Both of them passed. And so, again, no lawyer worth of salt is going to tell his clients to take a polygraph test or anything like that.
Here's what matters. The story changed twice in the same conversation. Not dramatically. The core claim, they cooperated, they're not hiding, remained. But the method of cooperation got corrected. This is how myths embed themselves in true crime spaces. A detail gets reported incompletely. It gets shared, re-shared. And by the time someone corrects it, the original version is already canon in comment sections and forums. The facts underneath are still favorable to the defendants, but the shifting story, even when explained, feeds the suspicion in viewers who are already skeptical.
Have the friends taken polygraphs?
Well, from my understanding, all but I believe one took a polygraph, and from what was told to me that they all passed. And all of the ones that took a polygraph took one without a lawyer. And they cooperated with law enforcement. So from my understanding, everybody took a polygraph test.
Why do you say that's
test,
from
but
what
one.
you understand? Did they tell you they took a poly and passed?
Yes, ma'am. They told me that they did it. I wasn't there. So that's what I'm saying from my understanding. They told me that all the boys except one, which is Warren, I believe, took a polygraph test. All of them did not have lawyers and did it and cooperated with police. Warren also cooperated with police. I just believe he didn't take a lie detector test, but Warren is the young man that I interviewed. So according to what they told me, they all took a lie detector test and passed. And it's an equivalent of a lie detector test. It's not a traditional lie detector test, but it's the same theology of trying to get to if a person is lying. I don't know the name of it. It's an equivalent of a lie detector test. It's a different methodology. I don't believe it was a polygraph test. I believe they took other stressors in order to analyze if the people were telling the truth or not.
So then the answer to did they take a polygraph would be no.
Which brings us to the second turning point, the 1600 p.m. sighting. The attorneys claim two witnesses, known to each other, both of whom knew Nolan for a long time, saw him alive on the island around 600 p.m. on July 4th. These witnesses have spoken to police. They've given statements. They're not friends of the defendants. They're not part of the friend group. They came forward on their own.
Is blue does not mean the sky is blue. You do know that, right?
Well, I can tell you this: they were off Horn Island at 4:30 p.m. on July 4th, and Nolan Wells was seen alive.
Now we're getting somewhere. How can you prove that to me other than them telling you? I assume you've got GPS tracking and the call to CETO?
We have witnesses among other things, but I can also tell you this: they were off the island at 4:30 p.m. and Nolan Wells was seen alive by multiple people at 6 p.m. still on the island. And I'm sure Tyler would be happy to elaborate on that, but this is a no doubt.
Nancy Grace, the interviewer, a former prosecutor with decades of trial experience, pressed for specifics. Did they know Nolan well enough to make a positive ID? Had they been drinking? How exactly could they be sure of the time?
So Nancy, look, we have had multiple witnesses reach out to us, two confirmed witnesses that saw Nolan Wells on the island around 6 p.m. on July 4th, well after the Triton, as you said, left around 4:30. And so those witnesses have went to investigators, they've talked to the police, and they've done what they're supposed to do. We've cooperated 100%. So has
Where did they
those
see
witnesses.
him, Tyler Cox? Where did the witnesses see them? Do they know him well enough to make a positive ID?
The attorneys answered with qualified acknowledgement. The witnesses made an ID. They told investigators from the start. Yes, the two witnesses knew each other and were together that day, which raises a complication if they discussed what they saw before going to police. They could have reinforced each other's memory or contaminated it.
Well, I'm not sure if the witnesses saw that picture that you just put on screen, but I can confirm to you that these witnesses know Nolan. They've known him for a long time. They were able to make a positive ID. And they told that to investigators. They told them that from the very start.
Had they been drinking?
That I do not know.
This is the investigative gap nobody fully resolves in the interview. Two corroborating witnesses who spent time together before giving statements is better than one isolated witness, but it's not as clean as two witnesses who separately came to the same conclusion. The defense hasn't acknowledged this tension. Grace did. She asked the question courts would ask, and the attorneys moved past it, which, fairly or not, signals they're aware of the weakness.
Here's my question to you. Are these witnesses friends of your clients?
I don't think they're friends, and they're not even the same age.
Okay. Next question. How many witnesses place him there on the island at 6-ish?
At least 2 that I know.
2. Do the witnesses know each other?
Yes.
Were they together that day?
Yes.
Have they had a chance to discuss their recollections with each other before they came to police?
But here's the media literacy moment worth sitting with. The video evidence everyone references as proof Nolan wasn't on the boat at 40:30 is never fully authenticated in this conversation. Timestamps aren't discussed. The video comes from Brandon Tatum's post. It shows people on a boat, some bent over, some in swimsuits. Grace says she can't identify which person is Nolan based on the photo alone. His legs and swimsuit are visible, but his face isn't. The defense points to the video as ironclad proof. Grace says it's corroborating, but not complete proof by itself. This gap between what the defense presents as definitive and what an experienced prosecutor views as circumstantial is where casual viewers and deep investigators will split. The medical examination introduces a different kind of uncertainty, one rooted in official procedure rather than witness credibility. Nolan's body washed up on Horn Island. The medical examiner removed his lungs, standard procedure for suspected drowning, to test for water in the tissue. But the examiner also removed his throat. This isn't standard. A throat removal suggests questions about strangulation, ligature marks, manual compression, hyoid bone fracture, all indicators of foul play beyond drowning. Neither the defense attorneys nor anyone else in the interview could explain what prompted this removal. The attorneys punted we're not medical examiners. We don't know. We want to know just as much as anyone. Grace let it stand. The absence of an explanation doesn't mean foul play occurred. It means the most direct evidence of cause of death remains, at this point in the recorded conversation, unreleased or at least unexamined publicly. This is a restraint marker worth stating plainly. The mark on the back of Nolan's head, mentioned at the opening of the interview, is referenced but never fully explained.
Big honkin' mark, subcutaneous, deep reddening tissue on his occipital. If I hit somebody in the back of the head, it'd be right there.
There was no indication that there was any kind of contusions on the hand, the arm, no kind of defensive.
An expert notes it's consistent with blunt force trauma to the occipital region, the back of the skull. It's the kind of injury you'd expect if someone had been struck or if they'd fallen and hit their head. But it's also consistent with impact against rocks during rough water currents after death, without autopsy results or medical examiner findings publicly released. The interpretation of this mark remains contested. Now, the Coast Guard call, somewhere in the hours after Nolan failed to return, one of the friends called the Coast Guard. That call was recorded. That call eventually got posted online, and then it got posted again and again with different enhancements, different audio clarities. Some versions include words, phrases, or tones that people claim suggest guilt. Other versions sound identical but with different captions. Some appear to be AY enhanced. Some are fake. By the time this interview aired, there were, by one attorney's count, hundreds of versions floating around the internet. This is a textbook example of how documented evidence becomes corrupted by noise. The original call, recorded by the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, probably exists in an archive somewhere. But by now, the mythology has overtaken the fact.
The lawyer for several of the young men. Also with us, Edward Pulsick, attorney for the boys as well. Tell me what you can about the sea-tow call. I've had renowned experts say, this wasn't doctored. I've had renowned experts say, this was totally doctored. Have you heard the original sea-tow call from Mississippi Department Marine Resources? Have either of you listened to that call? Because I've heard it so many times, I'm now jaded based on what people think they're hearing, based on enhancements. I even had my own producer, who does not have a dog in this fight, no skin in the game, enhance it. But I want to hear what you guys know about the CETO call. My mind is open.
Look, anybody can adjust the gain. Anybody can enhance it or sweeten it. But it doesn't change the fact that just because you put words over some audio means that those words are now attributable to what is on the call. Look, another boy called CETO. We have video that was released of Brandon Tatum. He posted it, and it shows who all was on the boat. At no point in time does this CETO call ever, not once, where you find any sort of mention of Nolan being on the boat, of something happening to Nolan. I cannot state clearly enough, Nolan was not on the boat when it departed around 4:30. Look, the video that you're showing now, does anyone look like, and look, there's the boy that's on the CETO call right there. Does anyone look like there's a body on the boat or something had just happened? Look, Nancy, you were a prosecutor
No.
for a long time. None of these boys have a story that is untrue. Don't you think that after all this time, somebody would have snitched? That somebody wouldn't be able to keep their story straight? No. Look, these boys are telling the truth.
Typically, you're absolutely right. That's why I usually don't believe in conspiracies, because nobody can keep their yap shut. Somebody blabs.
And Nancy, now I'll say something about the CETO call. I have heard a lot of versions of the CETO call, and most of them are either completely fake or AI or doctored. And unfortunately, for folks that are doing that, that may become the subject of one or more lawsuits. It appears that there are hundreds of versions of the CETO call all over the internet, everywhere online. So now nobody can keep track of it.
The defense makes a fair point. In none of the versions does Nolan appear to be on the boat. Nobody in the call mentions foul play. The person calling sounds concerned, not panicked or guilty. But fear and guilt can sound similar in audio, which is why voice stress analysis, by the way, is itself contested by experts and inadmissible in most courts. Then there's the question nobody answers to completion: where is Nolan's phone? It's a locked object. His location data, his final messages, his last online activity, all of it sits in a device that belongs to his family, not to police. The attorneys confirm it hasn't been turned over to investigators. They say they want all evidence to come out. They say a phone dump would clear their clients by showing the timeline of location data. But they're not the ones with the phone. The family, through Ben Crump's office, apparently holds it. Why hasn't a grand jury subpoena compelled its production? The attorneys say a grand jury is convening, or might be, or should be. Grace asks repeatedly. No one provides a final answer. This gap between what could be known and what remains private is worth examining. Nolan's phone could answer. When was he last on the island? Did he message anyone after 40:30? Did he call anyone? Did he request help? The absence of that data isn't evidence of guilt among the friends. It's evidence of a missing piece. And missing pieces in true crime communities get filled in by speculation. Here's an open question for you. If you were Nolan's family, would you turn that phone over to investigators immediately? Or would you have it analyzed independently first to understand what your son's final hours looked like before handing it to police? There's no obvious right answer. But it does affect the timeline, and it affects how long this case remains unresolved. The boat itself adds another layer. The Triton hasn't been thoroughly searched, according to the attorneys. No cadaver dogs, no scent dogs, no luminol, no alternative light sources. Grace, the prosecutor, finds this interesting because it's atypical. In her experience, when suspects have something to hide, they clean boats, destroy evidence, panic. The fact that the Triton remains available to law enforcement, untouched by the defense, suggests either innocence or impressive composure. The attorneys argue it's evidence of cooperation. They opened the boat. Police can search anytime. Police haven't. This becomes the defense's question back to investigators. If you suspected foul play on that boat, why haven't you searched it thoroughly?
I do not believe that it has been searched by authorities, but it's been available to authorities this entire time. If authorities wanted to come see it, they're more than able to, and have been.
Okay, I find that very interesting, Tyler, and I'll tell you why. In so many cases that I've prosecuted and covered and investigated, you see defendants, targets, trying to get rid of evidence. You see them cleaning the boat. You see them washing it down. You see them trying all sorts of methods to get rid of evidence. It's interesting to me and somewhat probative that your clients have offered the boat up to law enforcement to come and search it. I'm curious, has the boat not just been searched with the naked eye? Has luminol been used on the boat? Has alternative light sources been used on the boat? Has a cadaver dog come to the boat? Has a scent dog come to the boat? To your knowledge, either one of you.
To my knowledge, Nancy, I do not believe that has happened. But again, my 3 clients, either one of them, none of them own that boat. So if it has, you would have to ask the owners.
Tyler, do I look like I just fell off the turnip truck? Maybe I do, because we did sell turnips at the farmer's market when I was growing up. That said, you telling me my clients don't own the boat, so you'd have to ask the owner. Come on. You and Paulsick know if the boat has been searched. You know if cadaver dogs or scent dogs, luminol or alternative light has been used on the boat. Can you just tell me? Yes, no. It's not your client's fault. It's law enforcement's fault if they haven't done it.
If authorities thought that there was something to find on that boat, don't you think this far out they would have already done it?
I would think in the ordinary course of an investigation into potential foul play, I would have gone out there and done it. Just
if you believe there was potential foul play.
Just to say, I searched it and it was clean. I didn't find any human blood.
Well, Nancy, you're asking a valid... Hold on, you're asking a valid question. You're just asking the wrong people. That's a question for law enforcement.
To your knowledge, has it been searched? Have you been told by anyone that it was searched?
I don't have any involvement with the law enforcement. I don't have any involvement in the investigation. We're conducting our own investigation.
The answer from the interview is that it's not the defendant's boat, so it's not their responsibility to request a search. That's law enforcement's job. But the very fact that a boat used by the deceased hasn't been forensically examined 1 month into the investigation is unusual. It suggests either investigators don't believe the boat is the crime scene, or they're still building their case, or resources haven't been allocated yet. One detail that doesn't get enough attention: Nolan spent much of the day with a girl named Katie who wasn't part of his friend group. He apparently met her on the island that day. When the friends first couldn't find Nolan, they reached out to everyone they knew trying to locate him. Eventually, they got Katie's number through mutual connections and texted her. Katie said she thought Nolan was leaving with them. He wasn't. The fact that Nolan spent significant time with someone outside his immediate circle, and that his friends initially didn't know who she was, is normal social behavior at a crowded beach. But it also means Nolan had connections and movements that weren't entirely documented or observed by the group he'd come with.
I want to hear what your clients are saying happened that day, because my interest is piqued because you stated a young lady, and I assume this is Katie, the mysterious Katie, who turns out not to be that mysterious at all. Much was made of that. Now, one thing about Katie, originally, one or some of your clients said he was with some girl, we don't know her. Then it turned out they had been texting with her, so they did know her. There may be an innocent explanation for that or not. So explain to me, who were they talking about when they said he was with a girl, we don't know her? He had never met her before, but yet they were texting with Katie, the girl he had been with. I'll throw that to you, Tyler. Do you know the answer to that?
Sure. So they didn't know Katie, and they believe that Nolan didn't know Katie before that day. But you have to remember, once they started getting suspicious that Nolan wasn't with them anymore, they start asking themselves, okay, well, where's Nolan? They start texting everyone that they knew. Hey, have you seen Nolan? Do you know where Nolan is? Did he make it back home? All before they called Christine Wells that night, they start asking everybody. And so eventually they end up getting, through mutual friends, whoever, Katie's number. And so I believe it was maybe either Snapchat or text message. They got in communication with Katie. And Katie says, I don't know. We thought he was leaving with y'all. Well, I don't believe that's the case, obviously, because he did not leave with our boys. We don't know what happened to him, but that's Katie's statement.
Katie's role remains underexplored in most coverage of this case. She spent hours with Nolan. She was among the last people to see him. Did she see him leave the beach to go back to the Triton? Did she see him after 4:30? Does she have information about his state of mind, whether he seemed distressed, whether he mentioned going anywhere? The attorneys say she took a stress analysis voice test and passed. But little else about her account has been detailed publicly. So where does the timeline leave us, nearly a month after Nolan Wells died? The documented facts are these: Nolan went to Horn Island on July 4th. The Triton, a boat carrying his friends, left the island around 4:30 p.m. According to GPS data, 2 people claim to have seen Nolan on the island around 6:00 p.m. If both of these facts are true, his friends were not on the island at 6:00 p.m. and therefore cannot be placed at the scene if something happened after that time.
These boys had nothing to do with the death of Nolan Wells.
Okay,
Listen,
when was
we
the
don't-
timestamp on that video?
Nancy, I'm going to answer it this way.
Yes.
We don't think
Okay.
that you're accusing us of lying. We don't feel that way. We're just simply saying this. And it's okay. You're asking legitimate investigative questions. And we don't fault you for that. But here's what we're saying. It's been over 30 days. There has never been one shred, one iota, one piece, nothing. There is no evidence that ties Warren, Morgan, or Jax to any crime because they did not commit a crime. They had
That
nothing
may very well
whatsoever
be
to
true.
do. Right.
And
there's
again,
nothing.
what's the timestamp on that video?
But that's not our burden. See, that's the problem. You're putting this burden on us, all right? There's never been one
No,
piece of
you
evidence.
did that to yourself, Paulsick, when
No,
you
we
said,
didn't.
here's the boat that day and he's not on it. That may very well be true. That may be
no,
absolutely
we
true.
didn't. We
And
didn't
I'm
do that
saying,
to ourselves.
when was the video
What?
taken?
Well, no, I'm telling you
Around
that we have
4:30,
multiple.
July 4th.
Yeah, and I'm telling you another thing, Nancy. We have multiple witnesses, and we're going to protect their names on the air here. We're not going to air
I
out a
think you
private
should.
list of witnesses. We are. We're going to protect them. So I want to emphasize that as well. The witnesses that we're talking about, we're not going to do that to them. We're not going to name them here on the air. We're not doing that.
I'm not
So,
asking you to.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you are.
I'm asking you
But we're
again
not-
when the timestamp is on that video. But if you don't know, I'm not saying that that's wrong or right.
Well, I'm not.
I'm saying
Right, no,
I want to
I
know
understand that.
to
I understand
corroborate
but that's
that
not-
video.
I understand that, but that's not a relevant question for your present guest since we didn't make the video. But I can tell you this.
Okay, well, you showed me the video, and that's why I'm asking. Okay, let me ask
Well,
you
we didn't-
something else.
yeah, we didn't show you- we didn't
state
show
that
you
your
that. Yeah,
clients
Go ahead.
know of witnesses, or you know of witnesses that placed
Yes.
Nolan at Horn Island alive at 6 p.m.
Yes. 100%.
Now, all of this aside, all of the, has the boat been searched? Where is Nolan's phone? Where are your client's phone? All that is superseded by the fact that there may be witnesses placing him alive on the island at 6 p.m. And everything else disappears for me if that is true, because I know your clients were gone at 4:30-ish.
Yes.
Have these witnesses been questioned by law enforcement? Do you know?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
You're sure?
Yes. Yes. And I'll tell you another thing. One other thing. There's a corollary. Nancy, there's a corollary. So there are witnesses who can place Nolan Wells on the island at 6 p.m. There are also witnesses who can confirm that Warren, Morgan, and Jax left the island around 4:30. So both sides are covered. We've got it covered.
The body was found washed up on the island. The cause of death has not been made public, or at least not in this interview. Nolan's phone remains private. The Triton hasn't been forensically searched. The Coast Guard call exists in multiple versions, most of which are likely unreliable. And 1 month has passed without an arrest. The timeline changes everything if it's believed. But believing it requires accepting witness testimony about a time, 6 to 100 p.m., that neither the witnesses nor anyone else pinpointed with total certainty. How do you know it was 6:00? You're pretty sure people were aware of the time. Did they check a watch? Did they remember because of some external event? The attorneys don't explain. And for a timeline that's supposed to be exculpatory, that missing precision matters. Here's what we don't know. We don't know if Nolan drowned. We don't know if he was struck. We don't know if the 6:00 p.m. sighting is accurate. We don't know why the medical examiner took his throat. We don't know what's on his phone. We don't know if the Triton holds any forensic evidence. We know that a case 1 month old with no arrest and no clear cause of death remains, by definition, unresolved. We know that the friends have cooperated to a point: phones, location data, statements. We know they haven't taken polygraphs, which is legal advice, not evidence of guilt. We know that the timeline, if accurate, would exonerate them. And we know that everything hinges on evidence, medical, digital, testimonial, that either remains private or hasn't been publicly discussed. 1 month later, Nolan Wells' death remains a genuine mystery, not because the facts are hidden, but because the decisive facts, the phone, the autopsy results, the boat forensics, haven't been laid out.
But for me, everything is, what can I prove? What can I prove? They say so, so what? Prove it to me. Let me ask you this. Do you know where Nolan's phone is? Anybody? Can
Today?
anybody tell me where Nolan's phone is?
Good question.
Right now, as we sit here today.
Has it ever been turned over to authorities?
No, it has not.
You're sure?
Yeah, I believe that Ben Crump, using local counsel, sent a letter out just last night, gave it to Don Lemon on his show, and Don Lemon on his show confirmed that they have not given the phone to investigators.
Well, that's on investigators, because they need to get the phone and they need to look at it.
How are they going to get it if they don't give it to them?
Warrant? Subpoena Dukas
Based on
Tecum? Grand
what?
jury subpoena Dukas Tecum?
Sure, but it hasn't been to the
No
grand
one's
jury
phone?
yet. Hasn't been to the grand jury
There
yet.
is. Are you telling me you don't think a grand jury is convening on this?
I think they are. I don't think they have looked at
Well,
the
you
case
said, how do
yet.
you get the phone? You obviously get the phone. Police go say, hey, can we look at the phone? And they go, sure, here it is. That's one way.
Well,
Or you're
what if they don't give it to
investigating a
them?
potential crime. You get a warrant and you go, hey, give me the phone. Here's the warrant. That's two ways. Or you get a grand jury or a judge's order. There's all sorts of ways to get that phone.
Well, Nancy,
You could
Nancy,
just ask and they hand it over.
Yeah, Nancy,
Why didn't they give it to
why
him?
has the Yeah, Nancy, why? Yeah, why is that phone hasn't been turned over? Why?
Why
guess
would
it
the
hasn't
DA's
been
office
asked
need to
for,
get a warrant?
But I think it should be, and I think it should be asked for. Look, I am not stirring the Nolan Wells phone pot with you. I got bigger fish to fry with you two gentlemen. I'm just curious. I mean, wouldn't that put a lot to bed if we could look at the phone and look at the GPS tracker on it, look at the route? I mean, look,
Yeah,
I know
we
where
want
my
more
twins are
evidence.
right now because they got Live 360. Yay.
Nancy,
Why can't we
want
look
more,
at that? I mean,
Nancy, we want more evidence. Let's get it all. That's the thing. That's the beauty of it. When you're telling the truth and you're representing three innocent young men, the beauty of it is you want more evidence.
We gave our phones up. We let them do a
Yeah.
phone dump of our phones.
which I find very, very interesting. Because a phone dump, everybody shows where the phone's been, what time it was there. It's not hard to do. It pings off phone cell towers, and you can tell as it progresses along. Not hard. Easy. And I find that probative because it will tell me when the boys went to Horn Island, the young men and when they returned. It's better than an eyewitness to me. Tyler, what else do you have to add?
Nancy, we have told you, we've told everyone we could, we've shouted it from the rooftops, the same story over and over again. There's no other way to say it. It's like banging our heads against the wall because nobody, at least in the online atmosphere, will listen to it. We've said the same thing over and over and over again. We can't say it any other different way.
The timeline changes everything if it's true. But truth, in cases like this, requires verification, not just assertion. That's the gap we're sitting in now.
If you know or think you know anything regarding this case, and I implore the FBI to enter the investigation, dial 228-769-3063. Repeat, 228-769-3063. There is a $125,000 reward for information leading to the truth of what happened to Nolan Wells. I also implore you, please, we can take the trolling online, don't care, but the death threats, no. To anybody, let the law unfold as it should. We remember an American hero, Chief William Rosen, Neptune Township, EMS, New Jersey, killed in the line of duty, leaving behind a wife turned widow, Kristen, and an only son, Sebastian. American hero, Chief William Rosen. Thank you to our guests for being with us tonight, and hopefully they will accept my invitation to join me again. But especially to you for being with me tonight and every night here on Crime Stories as we seek to further the investigation into the death of Nolan Wells. Nancy Grace signing off for tonight, but God willing, I'll see you tomorrow night, and until then, good night, friend.
If you believe the 6000 p.m. sighting is accurate and the 430 boat departure is accurate, comment below. If you think the timeline has holes, tell us what you'd investigate next. We're following this story as it develops, and we'll bring you updates as evidence becomes public. Stay with us for the Unresolved.